8:10 here as we continue on this Wednesday edition. Let me live on KWB, and my pleasure to welcome to the program Peggy Trent, our current district attorney, Albany County attorney here. How are you this morning?
Very good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I appreciate the time. Things have changed a little bit around the unfortunate the county attorney's race here with the passing of Mr. Lopez, and you and I set this interview up a few weeks back. I think I want to say about 3 weeks ago. Unfortunately, we had Mr. Lopez. So I got to ask you, though, as you look at, unfortunately, quote-unquote, not having an opponent on the ballot right now, does that change your perspective at all? I'm just curious as to kind of what you're thinking.
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, I think it's important to still get out with the message of what I intend to do, what I've done as the current DA, and what are my priorities for our office. And I think the community has a right to know. Still elected official, still requesting their vote in November 6th, and I think it's more important than as ever that even if you are unopposed at this time, to let the voters know what I intend to do in this position.
Well, certainly, and I want to give you an opportunity. Let's talk about some of the things you feel like you have accomplished in the last 4 years. I know one of the big things has to do with juveniles, youth in the community. I think that's one big area. What do you feel has been the most success in that landscape when you're looking at prosecution of juveniles in this community?
As you know, 4 years ago, I promised the community that we were going to treat our youth and juveniles different and not try them through adult court. So one of the number one priorities when I took office was to change that landscape and how we do it. We now divert almost 98 to 99% of our kids from the juvenile justice system, and they are now diverted into programs and individualizing and trying to find methods to help those children to keep them out of our system. We've had great success. Our recidivism rate is very low, meaning they're not coming back within the first year of being in the system. We're also saving money. What we normally would do in putting a child through the court system or having, unfortunately, to put them outside of home or various ways, we now keep children in home, and we have reduced our costs for the state, since we are an arm of the state as the county, probably approximately 65%.
Wow. I guess I didn't realize it was that big. And I know because you want to give these kids an opportunity to see if they can learn from their mistakes. It's kind of the way you approach this, basically?
Absolutely. We have, as I think I've been on before, talking with you about restorative justice.
Yes.
And how we're approaching and working with children to readjust their behaviors and to move in a more positive direction. At the same time, it helps with victims of crime to have a closure or healing process as well. So we've tried the restorative justice program. Unfortunately, towards funding, we do not do as much as I would like to see happen, but we're exploring different avenues and partnerships in order in the future to have that in place.
Well, speaking of funding, how difficult is it with funding at the county level right now, considering the restrictions we've seen at the state level come down? Have you seen that impact your office directly?
Yes, and in another manner is we've seen a growing increase of drug abuse among families and youth.
Oh,
and
wow.
as a result of it, here in Albany, through my case management and system, we've noticed a 65% increase in drug substance abuse offenses since I took office. Statewide, there was recently, the Joint Judiciary Committee met, and they said it was an 83% increase, but they went back to 2013. So not only were we seeing budget cuts, reduced staff, and then increased caseload. So what we've done is we've sought out alternative partnerships with the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Attorney General's Office. I've sought out grant funding. I'm pleased to say that we have secured a lot of that funding. As you well know, that's temporary soft money, but hopefully that gets us through implementation of putting into place different programming pieces in order to assist us to get those numbers down, and then we can assess, do we need a permanent increase in staff.
Talking with County Attorney Peggy Trent, running for re-election here in 2018. We're inside of 3 weeks away from the general election coming up on November 6th. So we've talked about juveniles. I think another thing that you've looked at is trying to assess and evaluate what should be kind of felony charges versus what shouldn't be, and I guess where do you feel you've landed in terms of criminal prosecution here? Because every county attorney is going to have their critics and their supporters, I guess. Where do you feel you've gone in the right direction?
Well, I'm trying to assess, and that was my first term, to understand the volume of cases, where we're seeing a majority of our criminal cases. As I just said, a majority are non-violent, which are drug offenses. However, we do have violent cases that do need our attention and where we should be directing our resources and attention. As a result of that, we've started a special victims unit which deals with sexual assaults and violent crimes, so that we give that needed attention that we need to give to the victims of the crime, as well as how we approach those cases. We also are seeing an increase in how our criminal justice system is being a warehouse or used for mentally ill. So it's another area that I intend in my next term, if elected, to work on how we treat the mentally ill. We're using our jails and prison systems to hold underlying substance abuse a lot of times is mental illness, so we need to find ways to divert those. I'm working right now and have approached the Department of Corrections to start a pre-trial release program so that we can get in earlier and determining where we need to divert or move those cases out of the system, just like the juvenile justice system where we saw such a great reduction in cost. We can bring that over to the adult system to save money as well.
Now, you say save money, and so I'm curious as to how you go about saving money if especially in cases with mental health. How do you go about that when they still need evaluation and things like that?
Correct, and that is the misconception. To take a case through the system, and if you end up in prison, you are spending way more funds on the tail end, where you can move those funds to outpatient and treatment on the front end, which saves costs, reduces the costs and needs for prisons being built, reduces the need. However, it's paramount we still look at the safety of our community, and that's a balance to understand those cases and individualize it to know where we need to address that person's individual needs. But in the long run, you do save money.
Okay. Again, we're talking with Peggy Trent, County Attorney up for re-election here in 2018. Obviously, there's been a lot when it comes to governmental transparency, letting the public in and to see whatever is going on, whether it's records or data or expenses or things like that. How do you feel your office has done in your first 4 years? Are there things you would like to change there as well?
Part of my job not only is being the DA, I'm also the county attorney, so I represent the county officials, elected officials, the boards, and department heads. So not only my office is an elected official, it's imperative that we're open and transparent to the government and to the public, to everyone. So part of that process, I have come forward to assist with our elected officials to make those changes that are as needed. We try to get as much information as we can out to the public through our website, through social media, through our we now have our victim witness unit within our office, so that we're getting information for individual cases out to that. So it's more of a collaboration to get it out. But as to transparency, I'm the attorney, so a lot of what I do on an individual case is confidential. So what I work towards is the elected officials we represent and how to advise them. I think the most noticeable to me was the reduction in executive sessions you see as a body. I think that comes from legal advice and from those policyholders understanding the need to be open in what we say and do about policy.
That's got to be a delicate balance, though, for you as an attorney, that fine line of being as open and transparent as possible so that those of us in the public, like myself and citizens, know what's going on, but at the same time also understanding that fine balance of confidentiality, because sometimes you'll sit there and I'll look at a result of something and go, well, I'd like to know a little bit more about this, but there's that fine line. So how difficult of a process is that to undertake for you as an attorney?
Well, as an attorney, it is difficult because we don't want to disclose items that could expose the county and our taxpayers to liability. But at the same time, we do have to admit when we may have misstepped or that we need to change the way we're conducting business. So we do discuss it openly. I do try to speak about legal terms. I do a lot of education behind the scenes with our individual commissioners and elected officials, meeting with them. I'm fortunate I only have 3 commissioners as opposed to city council, which is 9.
Yeah.
That makes it a little easier to have those conversations.
Okay. So we've talked about some of your accomplishments. Are there things in your first 4 years that you look back and go, boy, I need to maybe make some moves, take some steps towards, so I guess, what are you looking forward to in the next 4 years if you're reelected November 6th? What are some of the things you'd like to accomplish moving forward?
Well, looking back, and as I came into office, it was really important to me to fulfill my promises to the community of programming pieces, and I have done that. So as I move forward, I'm looking for more program pieces, as I briefly spoke about, how we treat mentally ill, vulnerable adults, adults with disabilities, and protecting them in our aging population, as well as the substance abuse issue. But also, I think after getting the office now, when I inherited the office, there were a lot of challenges. I came on the heels, unfortunately, of my predecessor that had some difficulties, and I think that brought with it a lot of internal changes, more than you would see normally in setting up a law office. I think moving forward, I need to point to improve the way we provide services, whether that be to defense attorneys, to victims of crime, to just our clients and how we're prosecuting cases. I feel at times it is a challenge with the resources, but I think we've done an excellent job in changing that approach, and some of it's just changing the way we look at things versus through the lens of how we handle it versus putting money. It's just a matter of changing a culture, so to speak.
Well, yeah, and sometimes that money's tight. I mean,
Right.
I mean, you are on a budget,
Right.
you know, and we've talked about the reduction there in the budget. And so, have you noticed having to put more on people's shoulders because of maybe a reduction in staff and things like that, and just the reduction that we've seen from the state level down to the county level budget-wise?
Yes, it has been a very stressful environment. Keep in mind, we're 24/7. We're support to law enforcement when they call. So we're on duty. We're trying more cases. We're moving forward, trying to raise that standard as well as making sure we're protecting the rights of defendants. So it is stressful, and it is not for everyone. And I have made certain that we have expanded created an intern-extern program where we partnership with the University of Wyoming.
Okay.
Right now, I think we have 6 legal interns and 4 discovery interns from undergraduate. Those students are vital to take off some of the caseload as well as their learning from our environment. So we work together from that, but this isn't for everyone, this job. And a lot of people use my office as a training and an opportunity to move on, where they work for individuals such as federal judges, state judges. They're working for large law firms, and it is exciting to see how they started in our office and then moved on to other opportunities. So you have to look at it as, you know, there may be an influx of people at time coming through, but it's exciting too to be around people learning and who really have a passion for what we do.
Well, speaking of passion, you have to have passion and a drive to do what you do 24/7, as you mentioned, to be on call. And it seems like you embrace that challenge a little bit.
Absolutely. I ran for this position to make a difference in how we handle juveniles, how we handle the prosecution of adults. You know, at times I'm sure I don't please everyone in what I do, however I care. And I'm always open to listening to what people say and seeing how to look inward as opposed to outward and attacking others to figure out how can we make a difference. So the reason I ran was specifically to make those changes. And I feel, you know, it's a privilege to serve in this role. And if I'm fortunate to be reelected in the second term, you know, I take that serious of what to provide and answering to the public.
Before I let you go here, again, we're visiting with Peggy Trent, up for re-election here in 2018 for County Attorney in Albany County, and of course we're inside 3 weeks away from General Election Day, November 6th, the Tuesday. Hope that you get out and vote. For you, I'll give you the floor. What would be one last message you want to leave with voters this morning, inside of 3 weeks away, to say, hey, vote for me for County Attorney?
Absolutely. As I said, 4 years ago, I came forward and I made a lot of promises to this community of Albany County, and I have fulfilled those promises. I have made a difference in how we treat our juveniles. I've also changed the approach of prosecution, that I'm collaborating with law enforcement, our community organizations, as well as victims of crimes, in order to do a better job in prosecuting cases and making our community safe. I have a lot more work to do. We have a lot more challenges in our community. I think I've shown that I am a team leader in order to address those difficult issues facing our community, whether it's civil or criminal. And I really would respectfully request their vote this November 6th, and I feel that I can do a good job in continuing to fulfill the promises I'm making.
All right, well, with that, I will let you go. I greatly appreciate the time, though, this morning, and best of luck on November 6th.
Thank you very much.